Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum everyone. Today we are going to start generation of pseudocoding and flowcharting. Right, so an object is given, write down a pseudocode and draw a flowchart to input two numbers and output their sum. This statement in programming is considered as object. Sometimes it is also known as a task, but mostly around 90%, 95% of programmers consider it or call it as an object, according to which we need to generate a program, we need to generate a pseudocode, or we need to generate a flowchart. Okay, let's start the session. So according to a statement, three numbers are going to be involved. Two numbers which are input by the user. Look at this statement very carefully. Write down a pseudocode and draw a flowchart to input two numbers. Two numbers are those numbers which will be input by the user, which will be input by the operator, and output their sum. Output their sum means a third number will be generated through a calculation. That is addition. Sum means answer of addition. So according to object, three numbers are going to be involved in the pseudocode, in the flowchart, or in the program. And for this purpose, for three numbers, we need to arrange three variables. Declaration and initialization of the variables are required. Declaration means to define the data type of the variable, and initialization means to define the or to mention the initial value, starting value of the variable. So let me start the question. Declare is a keyword that is used to define the nature or data type of the variable. I select num1 to 0 as integer. Num1 is equals to 0 is, that is in red, is initialization, and with declare as integer, that is actually the declaration of the variable. Means num1 is a variable with initial value 0 and data type integer. So in the memory section, we are going to have a space with num1, and the initial value in this space will be 0. Now declare num2 is equals to 0. Usually variables or constants have initial value 0, but that is not mandatory, as integer. According to this statement, another section in memory where memory will be generated with the name num2, and the initial value will be 0. This table is indicating the memory section of your computer system, right? So two variables have been generated in your memory section with the value 0. Then the third variable for the result, num1 is selected for the input of first number, num2 is selected for the input of second number. Now the resultant number, that will be the sum of these two numbers, num1 and num2. We are going to generate another variable, declare sum, initial value 0 as integer. So in memory sections, we have 3 variables with initial values 0. The first phase has been completed for the declaration and initialization. Okay, let's move towards the flowchart. How we are going to design the flowchart for this pseudocode or for this program. I already have told you that in insert option, we have a proper section of flowchart, that is the terminator or terminal. Fill, no fill, and shape outline. Let me just format the object, and we shall type start. That is the part of every flowchart. Now these 3 lines: declare num1 is equals to 0 as integer, declare num2 initial value 0 as integer, declare sum initial value 0 as integer. These are the 3 variables with initial values 0 and data types integer. Okay, that is not necessary to declare any variable or any constant or any array in flowchart. Only initial values will be shown. Okay, so it is allowed to us that draw only one process box for these 3 variables. We shall use rectangle, increase its size because 3 variables are there. You can write these 3 variables together in a single box, right? And what will be the pattern? Num1 initial value 0, comma, num2 initial value 0, comma, sum initial value 0. It is not necessary to produce or to draw 3 different boxes for same types of instructions. And then these 2 boxes will be connected with the help of arrow. Keep one thing in your mind, that arrow must be connected with both boxes properly, with both shapes properly. Okay, now the second phase, to input the values. According to requirement or according to the rules of programming, each and every input must have a clear instruction. Means if we want to enter first number, there must be a message on your screen. If we want to input second number, then there must be a proper message on your screen to input second number. For this purpose, we shall type output enter first number and then input num1. So according to these 2 instructions, a message will appear on my screen. It will be enter first number as it is that I typed at the programming mode, and the cursor will be blinking below the message. Here I shall type the number like I do type 12, and when I press enter, what is going to happen in memory section? The value of num1 will be changed. Now the value of num1 will be 12. What I did at the programming screen, output enter first number, input num1. So whatever value I'm going to type at this stage, that will be stored in num1. So look at the output screen clearly. First, the message enter first number is appeared on the screen. I typed 12 and pressed enter. So according to these two steps, typed 12 and pressed enter, the value of num1 has been changed from 0 to 12. Okay. Then next instruction, it will be output enter second number, input num2. According to these two steps, a message will be appeared on the screen like enter second number as it is, as I typed in program. Enter second number. At this stage, I do type 13. And what is going to happen next? This 13, actually what was the instruction? Input num2. That is the instruction. So what is going to happen in the memory section? The value 13 will be stored in num2. Now the value of num2 has been changed and now it is 13. Now come to the side of flowchart. For these two steps, input num1 and num2. Okay, keep one thing in your mind that strings are not required in flowcharts. It is not mandatory to show strings. Mean these output lines are not required to be used in flowcharts. Two input lines are there, input num1, input num2. And both these lines can be placed in a single box in the flowchart by using commas. How? Use a parallelogram, because parallelogram is used for the purpose of input and output. One time you have to write input, then num1 comma num2. So how many variables are going to be input together, and the whole program can be placed with a single if statement in a flowchart. Whether they are only two variables, whether they are 3, 4, or 5, or 6, or 10, or 20, or 30, or 100 of the variables, if they are at the same place, if they are together, then there is no need to draw a separate box for all the input statements. You only need to draw a single box, write down input inside the box only one time, and then mention the names of all the variables, all the constants by using the separator comma. Comma is playing the role of separator, means it is separating num1 and num2. Connect it with the arrow. Keep one thing in your mind that all arrows must be in straight direction. Now the second phase of the pseudocode is done. Now we are moving towards the third phase. Third phase means all the CAD processings, including calculations, comparisons, conditions, whatever required according to the object. So according to this object, write down a program to input two numbers and output their sum. Only one processing is required, that is one calculation. And what is the calculation? The calculation is addition, that we need to add num1 and num2 and the result will be stored in the variable sum. So for this purpose, we are going to write the instruction like sum num1 plus num2. So now what is going to happen according to this instruction? The value of num1 and num2 will be added and then stored in the variable sum. It is mandatory that answer of every calculation must be stored in a separate variable. That is the rule of the programming. We can directly print it too. Means we can only write a simple instructions output num1 plus num2 and it will generate the result. It will generate the sum on screen. But according to the rules of programming, the answer of every type of calculation must be stored in a separate variable. So it will be sum left indicator num1 plus num2. So according to this instruction, what is going to happen in the memory section? The value of num1 and the value of num2 will be added and then the result will be stored in variable sum. So 12 plus 13 is 25. So now the value of sum is 25. Changes in the memory sections are done. Now it's the turn for the flowchart. How this instruction sum is equals to num1 plus num2 will be written in the flowchart. Since it is a processing, so we need a process box. I take the duplicate of already made process box. It is not the center. Change the instruction in the box, that is sum left indicator num1 plus num2. Okay, give one thing in your mind, there might be multiple formula, there might be multiple calculations. So that is the rule of processing, that each and every processing must be shown in a separate box. We cannot use all the processing, we cannot place all the processings in a single box like the initialization of the variables or like the input or output of the variables. Each and every processing must have a separate box. Do connect it with the arrow. Now the final step, the actual output, the required output. So output required sum is inverted comma plus sum. Required sum is, or required result is, or required output is plus sum. So what is going to happen on your screens? You are going to have a message on your screens according to this instruction. Output required sum is, so this string will be appeared on your screen as it is. So on your screens, you are going to have a text message on your screen. Required sum is. Now plus, what is the role of plus at this spot? Plus is working, or the role of plus at this spot is concatenation. What is concatenation? We are going to discuss in the next couple of classes. Okay, we can also use comma at this stage. Two symbols are possible, comma and plus, because a string is something else. A string is something that will be appeared on a screen as it is without processing, and sum is a variable. So there must be a separation or there must be concatenation between two different things if we are going to input or if we are going to output anything on screens, right? So there must be some separation if multiple things are being input or if multiple things are being output. So in this situation, separation or concatenation is mandatory, right? For separation, we use comma. For concatenation, we use plus. Comma can be used every time, but plus symbol that is used for concatenation can only be used conditionally according to requirements. Means plus symbol for concatenation cannot be used in every situation. Comma can be used in every situation. Plus symbol cannot be used in every situation. So the required sum is sum. Okay, what is sum? Sum is a variable, right? A variable, a constant, or an array does not print in output, does not appear in output. Their values are appeared on screen as output. So the resultant will be the required sum is, what was the value of sum? The value of sum is 25. So that will be the output on your screens. Required sum is 25. Now the program or the pseudocode to produce the sum of two input numbers has been completed. We are going to ending the flowchart output. We already have discussed that parallelogram is used for the both instructions input and output. So I do take the duplicate of this box. Connected with the arrow. Change the restrictions. Again, I'm going to tell you that strings are not mandatory to place in flowchart. Output sum is enough. Now all the instructions have been entered in the flowchart. Take the duplicate of the start box, place it at the end. In the last box, you shall type end or stop. Both are correct. Connect the box with the arrow. Okay, one rule to be remembered, that arrows must be in a straight line, okay, and must touch both boxes. There must be no gap between the boxes and arrows. I'm going to connect them together. Now that is the flowchart at the right of the screen, and that is the pseudocode at the left of the screen. So I hope today's lecture has been understood by all of you, and there is no confusion in the drawing of a flowchart, a basic flowchart, or generating a pseudocode. Thank you, everyone.